Communities across the U.S. are exploring how advances in solar energy and energy storage can help to strengthen local resilience and support their clean energy goals. The Institute for Sustainable Communities has been helping to support projects in several U.S. cities through two different programs, the Partnership for Resilient Communities and Solar Market Pathways. We're excited to share these projects and approaches and hope it can help to support and inspire other communities who want to work on resilient solar.
Solar plus storage is the ability to charge and maintain and hold critical power. So the solar actually creates the generation of electricity. The storage allows us to store that power and disperse it at times when it's needed. So when the grid goes down, when the cost of power is peaking, if there's a natural disaster, it allows us to access that power even beyond just sunlight hours.
After Hurricane Sandy, even though New York City has a lot of installed solar capacity within the city, a lot of those systems were unable to operate because they are essentially set to turn off once the grid turns off. The DG Hub formed right after Sandy, trying to figure out what technologies were available to improve the resiliency of New York's installed solar capacity. The conversation started around smart inverters, and then the importance of battery energy storage and storage in general became very apparent. I think Hurricane Sandy wasn't just a wake-up call for New York, it was also a wake-up call for cities all across the eastern seaboard. We've seen a lot of movement and interest from other large cities that are now really thinking holistically about their city and its infrastructure, energy being a really important part of that process.
So when an outage hits, it disproportionately impacts vulnerable communities, whether that's low-income communities or elderly populations, disabled populations. They have fewer resources to be able to respond when a disaster occurs, and they also have fewer resources to be able to recover afterwards. So when an outage hits, these are communities that are already struggling, and often it highlights some of the vulnerabilities that they already have. Poor infrastructure, the fact that they're located in places that are more likely to be impacted. So when an outage hits, having a resilient power system between solar and storage can mean the difference between being able to survive and recover in an outage and the ability to really suffer throughout.
Through the Partnership for Resilient Communities, the Living Classrooms Foundation is using resilient solar to ensure that their community centers have power when the grid is down. At the same time, they are training low-income residents to become certified solar installers. This holistic approach not only creates resiliency during disasters, it's also building the economic resilience of the communities and its residents.
When we partnered up with ISC, that gave us the opportunity to turn our community centers into resiliency hubs. So by putting solar power, panels on the roof and battery backups, our community centers will now be a resource if the grids go down. So we really will be a partner with the communities.
Low-income communities are often the last to receive assistance when there's a disaster, and so we want to ensure that that is not the case if we do have a natural disaster or man-made event that causes hardship to a community. We want to make sure that the city, the state, FEMA, MEMA, anyone knows exactly where to get the resources so that we can get it to our community. We have 3 community centers in East Baltimore. Within this area, there are 40,000 people. There are 4,000 people who are unemployed. For anyone, if the power is out, it just creates a hardship. For us, I think the 2 key things are our seniors and just health and safety hazards for them. A lot of them have medicines that need to be refrigerated, and then there are large food deserts within East Baltimore as it is. So taking away the ability to refrigerate food is a huge issue when you already have a food access problem.
Recognizing the increasing threats posed by climate change, from sea level rise and flooding to forest fires and extreme heat, the City and County of San Francisco has been developing strategies to better serve communities and ensure access to basic services during emergencies. Over the past 3 years, they've been working with the Institute for Sustainable Communities on the Solar Market Pathways program to create a model planning process to identify and plan for resilient centers throughout the city and serve as a template for other cities that want to implement resilient solar on community facilities.
We're developing this roadmap by walking through the process ourselves in San Francisco, and it includes many steps. We're starting with identifying neighborhood hubs that will serve as gathering places for residents during a disaster, then identifying the buildings in those hubs that have some sort of critical facility like a shelter or food distribution or communications hub, and then identifying what electrical loads need to be served in those buildings in order to allow them to operate as they're intended during an emergency. Sizing a solar plus battery system to serve those electrical loads, figuring out how to pay for the system, and then finally incorporating the system into the emergency plans for that neighborhood hub.
An important step to designing a resilient solar system is to think about the critical load for the building during a disaster. It's really important to think about how the building is going to be used during an emergency, and that may be different than how it's used on a day-to-day basis.
For each building type we've looked at, places where people can shelter. So we've gone around these buildings with facilities managers, people who are in the emergency planning arena. We go building by building and figure out how it's going to be used, what type of loads the people have, lighting, cell phone charging. We build up a load profile for each building. So I think the best thing to come out of this project is the free load sizing tool. So this tool is found at the website solarresilient.org. It can be used in any US state. We're adding features to make it able to be used globally. And it sizes solar and storage systems.
Engaging the people who will be using the building during this process is really important. They'll be able to help you think about the building, the services that they need, and what you can do to make sure that you can meet their needs during the disaster. Because resilient solar projects are not yet widespread, implementing them can be challenging. If processes are not in place for things like permitting and interconnection, these can add cost and time to a project. In addition, financing can be a challenge.
Because of that lack of familiarity and understanding and the lack of easily definable value streams, it can be difficult to get financing in place and to have financial institutions be comfortable with financing, particularly the storage side of a project. But thinking about the cost of solar plus storage, a lot of it's more about trying to figure out the value of the system. And that can be tricky. It depends a lot on where you are. Things like, do I have the opportunity to save with demand charges, or are there revenue opportunities for energy storage? So it really gets into trying to figure out, what does the system mean for me as far as the value side? And some of those can be hard to put a price on because they're non-monetizable, like resiliency.
In Duluth, Minnesota, the Hartley Nature Center is a great demonstration of the potential for resilient solar.
Hartley was a really interesting case because actually when they had already decided to move ahead with the resilient solar and storage system, after they'd made the decision but before they had the system installed, they had an outage where they were forced to cancel some of their summer activities. And I believe this was around $14,000 of revenue that they would have had from having those programs go forward, which was about what the system cost that they had put in. So had they had the system in place at that time, it would have already paid for itself.
From San Francisco to New York, Baltimore to Duluth, we're seeing the value of resilient solar, not just to advance city sustainability goals, but for residents, as they prepare for the impacts of climate change and as they see the opportunities for employment and economic development in their communities. We're excited to see how the lessons learned and the tools developed in these communities can help others across the country to follow in their footsteps.